Stand by for satellite uplink. I mean, it could be going through satellite. I don't even know
Right,
what
it
route
probably is,
anymore, right?
honestly. It really
Okay,
probably is.
I think we're live now. Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Cannabis Marketing Live. I am your host, Jake Litke, the CEO at Gel. Today we have Jael Harris, who is the marketing manager for Marion, Maine, as well as More Media, the agency. Did I get that right? How do you describe it?
Founder of More Media Co. Yes.
For More Media Co., which is the
Yes.
domain. Okay, great.
Yes.
Well, thank you for joining us today, Jael. We are going to be covering a few different topics because she sits in a couple different categories, right? So running marketing for Dispensary in Maryland and also running her own agency. And so let's get started. And maybe uh, one of the things I like to ask people is, how did you find yourself in the cannabis industry, right? Because everybody kind of has a way that they found their path here. So maybe we could start there.
Yes. Very backwards, honestly. I was referred to Hope, which is who's the CEO of Marion, Maine, as a graphic design contractor. So, one of my friends and Ween sisters is a close friend with her, recommended me for a short stint contract with them just to kind of help them improve their visual identity when it came to in-store screens and Dutchy banners and things like that. The visual touch points just were not kind
Mhm.
of connecting, and they wanted a partner to help elevate those things. It was a short 3-month contract. And by the end of that contract, the opening came up on their side for a marketing manager. I shot my shot and said, listen, I think I can, offer what you guys need on the visual side while also kind of bridging the strategy for growth as well within the company. And I think they saw just the work ethic that I had put in for that small 3-month contract and felt like, she's already gone above and beyond here. Can't imagine what she would do if given the tools and resources to really commit to us almost full time. So negotiated my contract to where, Marion Main still technically is one of my clients. I work with them as a contractor, but I have a full-time in-house role with them, where I'm able to kind of support decision making. So that's really how I ended up in the industry. I wasn't, an avid consumer. Of course, everybody like had a small stint in college, but wasn't an avid consumer. Don't really, I won't call myself a connoisseur, but I have a respect for anything that brings people together. I'm a person that loves connecting people and places. And so weed and cannabis is one of those things. So I think that it felt natural to enter the space in this way, especially just at a Black-owned dispensary in a Black neighborhood, where I was able to kind of infuse my cultural learnings from other industries and, consumer knowledge with this industry that was like just breaking out at the time. So yeah.
Great. Yeah. All right. We'll circle back to the other industry overlap. I should at least talk about the topic today. We are going to be talking about customer retention and specifically, and we've had a few conversations about this over the last few months, which is kind of escaping the discount death trap or spiral or whatever you want to call it.
Race to the bottom.
Um, a race to the bottom, and that happens in many industries as they mature. But the reality is that discounts work, right?
Yeah.
For driving customers. And so, when we run a lot of advertising for dispensaries, and we definitely see good engagement when you offer a big discount.
Mhm.
However, it's not really a sustainable business model, and discounting is not a brand story, right? You can't have a brand identity if your brand is discount.
Yeah.
Um, so let's talk kind of high level about how you approach thinking about that and um, how you're able to convince people to not just discount everything.
Yeah. Well, the high level conversation starts with putting people in place who know what they're doing and can look at the data and see what it's telling us, right? I cannot take full credit for the fact that, we don't use discounts as our primary strategy. We have a really amazing inventory analyst and buyer who takes a look weekly at, what our numbers are doing to see, where we stand in terms of margin, how we're satisfying the needs of our partners and vendors. And taking that information, distilling it on the marketing level is where you can actually start to create strategy on doing something different that actually works, right? So I have to give a lot of credit to Mason, who works with us at Marion Maine. He does all that kind of analysis to give us those insights, and I take that and say, how can we get creative with that? Um, so that for me, honestly, is the biggest thing is getting the data, taking a look at it, and then starting there. In terms of how we approach things differently at Marion Maine, it's very community driven and community based. We know that we stand at the intersection of um, community and culture because of who our owner is. She was, one of the youngest Black women in the country at the time when she founded Marion Maine, the youngest Black woman in the country to own a legal and licensed dispensary, which on its own was an amazing feat, and without equity licensing at the time, right? So we knew that she came with this. Background in the industry of being respected, and people were coming there to support her, and we didn't run away from that. A lot of people, would have said, I don't, I want to kind of separate the entity from the person and make it its own thing. But we embraced that in the strategy that we use to push Marion Maine out there, and people buy into people, right? Like we're seeing a lot of like founder-led brands right now, and Hope definitely exemplifies that. And within the first few years, gave us a solid foundation upon which people bought in for her, but then stayed for the experience. So that's kind of the way we've approached it at a high level.
Okay, great. It does help to have some sort of identity as well around the brand. Now you mentioned looking at the data, which is something we do lots of. Um, what what is an example of a data insight that you're able to pull out that led to sort of actionable strategies that played out in a way that you wanted it to?
Yeah. One of the things that we saw was that bud tender incentivization has been one of the biggest drivers of success for us. When we had more sparks run in a certain month for a certain brand, we saw that that brand went up. And I think most brands are aware of this at this point. They know that the bud tenders are going to be the number one recommender of their brand to customers. Um, and so we ran, I'm not going to give away all the sauce, but
Sure.
we ran a really, intriguing incentive with a particular brand who was down month over month for a good half of the end of year last year, or a good portion of the year last year. And what we saw was that just with that one incentive, their their sales tripled within 2 months. And then since then has it continued to grow because of the fact that they had a strong recommendation. People experienced a strong recommendation, liked and fell in love with the product, and continue to come back. Our number one, another insight that's really been important for us is looking at what our discount, not just our discount rate, but what kinds of discounts perform the best for us. We noticed that in our category, in our area community, our two highest discounts were our wisdom discount, which is our senior citizen retirement age discount, and our veterans discount. Makes sense is that in that we live in the DMV where a lot of government workers are here, a lot of people who are, at the forts nearby, they retire here and they stay here. And so, knowing that those were our top two discounts, we didn't have to do huge discounts. We need to make sure that those discounts were optimized for that audience, right? And so, a lot of the times it's making sure that, we're looking at what intersections overlap in different identities. A lot of people who are veterans, sometimes, I don't want to make medical claims here, but sometimes will suffer from things like PTSD or also will have things like physical ailments. And therefore, our topicals and our medical grade items at the store, medical items, are gonna, be what is the biggest draw for them. So then we now know that we can, based on those discounts and who has redeemed those discounts, segment things like our campaigns and our outreach to those audiences to now, say Avexia might be best for you, or this brand might be best for you based on that. And then they gain those brands are able to gain customer loyalty, which means we as a store gain more revenue, and they come back to find it at our store in general, which is increasing our retention.
That's great. Now, I'm curious in your market, we did a series on discounts in general, and the level of discounting varies wildly by state, right? So depending on how many licenses there are, how mature that market is, how much competition, ranges anywhere from a low of like 15% in Missouri up to like 40% in Washington State, not
Right,
not
right,
the
not DC.
DMV. Although
Yeah,
I have a hard time saying DMV because I think like going to get my license and waiting in
right.
line every time you say DMV. Um,
Yes,
but I
Maryland to
realized,
be particular.
yeah. What is the Maryland discount market like in general? And I think that you did discuss that you are not necessarily just discounting the way other people in the market are.
Yes. So right now, what I'm seeing at other dispensaries is between that 20 to 35%.
Mhm.
On bigger holidays, 40 to 50, obviously. But I think some of those are inflated based on the fact that people are getting things like penny units on hand and all of that for promotional purposes. So that's kind of like the big range that we're seeing. You're right about not doing discounts in a traditional way, but we also are doing discounts in a traditional way. What we've done is we've created a promotional cycle that allows all of our vendors to pop up in our store with a discount attached to that as well. So we are doing those 20-25% discounts on a regular basis, if not more, depending on our relationship um, with the companies and what we're getting up front, all that kind of stuff. So there is a range, but that's typically kind of where we're sitting is at 20, 25 or so on a weekly basis.
Okay. All right, so let's talk about the in between. I know that this is this topic I'm pretty interested in,
Yeah.
which is okay, you've got a customer. Um, and the easiest lever to pull is to send out a text or an email and say, hey, whatever it is, it could be a loyalty discount, it could be promo points, just something that you can send out, and it does work. People come into
Yeah.
the store. What are to the extent you want to share your secret sauce, what are the types of tools you're using to incentivize retention and increase frequency without relying on discounts?
Yeah. Well, the first is that our power at our store, especially, is our people. And we recognize that, again, another data point that we saw with the bartender incentivization, the frequency of which people come in based on what bartender is working that day. We even were able to see small things like that. So when we realized that our power was our people, we knew that we had to invest more in people. And that meant incentivizing the bartenders more, also, making sure that they were receiving the product so that they can also, be able to recommend it with a true perspective. And
Mhm.
the other piece is just who we hire, right? Our front desk, when you walk in, you get greeted with a hi, baby, a hey, how you doing? A hello. And it's a very warm feeling. We call ourselves the DMV's home for cannabis, and that's very intentional. We sit at the intersection of Mary Jane, which is cannabis, and mainstream culture. So inserting ourselves into cultural moments while making our place feel like a cultural hub has been
Mhm.
super important to us. We have made sure to position ourselves to where we can be a part of things like Broccoli City Fest, right? We've done pop-up activations at Broccoli City in the DMV, which for those of you who may not know what it is a huge music concert that happens out here every summer. And there's headliners like Megan Thee Stallion and Gunna and these huge artists that are coming here, and people fly in from other places here. What also kind of tacks onto that is SEO strategy. So now when people are coming in for these huge concerts, they now know that we are a dispensary near XYZ stadium, right? And then we now have this activation happening as well, which is putting us in the conversation of this concert or festival, whatever the case may be. So that's just one example of how we've kind of inserted ourselves in cultural moments, made sure that our operations and SEO on the marketing side kind of meet the moment, and then, creating innovative ways to get new people in the door. So, for example, with that Rockland City activation, what we did was not actually pop up or pay for a huge vendor space at Broccoli City, which is the festival, but we did the day before the pre-party, which was sponsored by Issa Rae. So it was Issa Rae's pre-party. It was down at a huge music venue out here in DC, and we built out an activation kind of photo backdrop area, got a photographer to come out and take everyone's pictures in front of this backdrop, which was co-branded with Broccoli City and Marion, Maine. And in order to get their pictures, they had to give us their emails, and they also got a coupon to pick up free, or I don't want to say free, to pick up promotional product that they had to pay, a small fee for at our
Mhm.
dispensary. So now we're getting people who are probably either not from the area or from the area but weren't aware of our dispensary. We're getting them into the store because they're now getting a coupon to redeem at our store. And we're getting their emails because in order to get the incentive of just being at this, getting photographed at this really cool event, they have to give us their email to get there. So we just got our email list grown by over 1,000 people. We got at least 500 of those people in the door to pick up this product. And now we're able to reach out to them every single Broccoli City season to say, hey, are you back in town? Come over to Marion, Maine. We have something special for you. So all that is part of building this engine of, again, intention of getting into that cultural moment, being prepared for the moment by having your SEO and all of that in order, and then creating really cool incentives for people to come into your store and want to come back.
That's great.
Yeah.
Now, on the so you captured a bunch of emails.
Yep.
You had basically a 50% hit rate on people actually coming into the store. What was the first email that you sent that those new thousand potential customers? And is it a standard playbook, like every time someone signs up, they get it, or did you make something bespoke specifically for people that signed up at that event?
Yeah, so we created a custom flow for the folks who came to that event specifically. The first was delivering all the files for their photos. So they were able to just get that first email telling them that. Then the second flow, I believe, was something around I think they had this was a year and a half ago, so forgive me I'm a little bit fuzzy. I believe this was the day when Victoria Monet was gonna be on stage, and so we did like a custom graphic with Victoria Monet and said like you can't see the Queen without having these products or something like that. I think it was something around like your festival ready, starter kit, right? Or what are the most discreet or, what's going to give you the biggest THC or terpene payoff, but, not make you boof the entire time, right? Like things like that. So I think we did like a little festival starter kit in their emails. And then on the last day, it was grab something good before you go home, right? So people who are not from the area, we were able to see that based on, what they put in their sign up form and we're
Mhm.
able to kind of say, grab some gummies to, you can consume before you get on the plane, or grab a quick pack of pre-rolls to hit with your friends because I know you guys have run out from this big weekend at the festival. So a couple different touch points based on the day, what was happening that day with the festival. Our team was also at the festival, so we got tickets for our team to go and do a street team at the festival. This is also a part I missed actually. Um, I wonder if I have any of the little dollar bills in here. But we printed out these huge $20 bills with our CEO's face on it. And we were giving away 20% off coupons to folks at the festival as well with our Marion Main swag on. And also, if people scanned the QR code at the festival, they receive an entry to win an ounce for $1. So that was another opportunity on top of what we did the night before at the party to now get people in the festival, which is a 2-day festival, to join our list. A lot of people who are from the area as well. So again, sorry, there was so much there, but all of this kind of system working together with like having boots on the ground with the street team aspect, doing kind of like this cadence of responding to what's happening in the moment, like us being on the ground, I was able to go in and, switch up the language in the email because I saw that, wait times at the food line were really long. So it's like grab your munchies or things like that. I was able to kind of iterate really quickly because we were also immersed in the experience as well. So I think all of that kind of worked together to make it something that felt like, people were hearing from us in a way that was relevant and still kind of impactful for us.
It sounds like it was a fantastic activation.
Yeah.
And you were hustling the whole time.
Hustling.
Uh, yeah. So you have pretty good, it sounds like you have good metrics on understanding, sending out offers, getting people to come in for them. Now, what about the people that are coming in, like on a retention basis, right? Customers that come on whatever schedule. What kind of factors do you think are getting people to come back that are not discount driven?
Yeah. Well, one, obviously proximity, but we'll put that out the door because a lot of people just, even if the prices are high, they'll come out because of we're close by. The other piece is that we tend to incentivize our customers a lot as well. So last year for our homecoming giveaway, our founder is a HBCU alum. She went to Spelman University, and so we knew that for our anniversary, which is in September. That's also homecoming season at our store. So we knew that, during this time of year, people are partying a lot, they want to go out. Um, and we did a homecoming giveaway, which we sponsored like a sprinter van, goodies that everyone on their, in their homecoming squad could get, and then show forward them to and from all their homecoming activities and all of that. So customers come to our store because they know that like on a random Wednesday, we'll have this super cool incentive that they can just have a chance at simply because they walked into the door, right? Or because they're on our email list. Again, not discount driven at all. They are just coming in spending their money as they already would have, but there's this now added incentive that like they're going to be cool things that you can also have as an additional benefit. Um, Even during the week we'll have with our pop-ups, we make a very particular effort to work with the brands to not do just another basic pop-up. We don't want you to just come up in our store and hand out, little flyers and lighters. What is it that we can actually do to engage people and immerse them in your brand's world, right? And we did an activation with Savvy this year. We developed a summer school series 2 years. I developed a summer school series 2 years ago when we wanted to push concentrates, which has now kind of become an annual thing where we partner with the brands to create kind of education-driven moments that education-driven moments that again immerse you in their brand world. So we created a Savvy Skip Day, which is part of the whole summer school concept. We had a tattoo artist come out and do, little flash tattoos. Again, completely fr free as long as you support the brand or come in and want to learn more about the brand. We did flash tattoos. We had like custom like tote making with like hot pressed. You got the stickers from all the Savvy brand, the Savvy strains that they can kind of, use. So you come in to get a pre-roll and you can leave with a tattoo. You can leave with a new bag for the week and some cupcakes or a new product or whatever the case may be. So people like the fact that like they never know what to expect. If they're not on our email list, because if they're on our email list, they know what to expect. But they know that they like that they don't ever know what to expect, and it's always positive. It's always a good thing. It's always a plus and a perk. Not to mention that again, our staff is super friendly. Most of our reviews are about how amazing our staff is, how helpful they are, how empathetic they are. People know our staff, our customers, our staff knows our customers by name. They'll come in and say, "Hey, baby, I saw you changed your hair up," or "I saw you, you look good today. You smell good today." Like, they're very personable people that work at our front desk all the way to our back of house, and so people enjoy the experience. A lot of our folks, like I mentioned, in that wisdom discount age, this might be some of the most social interaction they're having per week if they're no longer working at a full-time job, right? And so they kind of feel this family feel when they walk into our doors that makes them feel accepted for what they're going through, if they're struggling with their mental health or their physical health. They're coming in to get some form of relief. I'm not necessarily saying it's healing them, but some kind of relief from the products that we sell. And they're also getting the relief from the people that are showing up and giving it to them. So I think all of that kind of works together to really make the environment feel both exciting and inviting.
Yeah, it sounds like you really have your on the ground game buttoned up very well.
Yeah.
Um, so that said, where do you look to technology? I mean, obviously you're sending out emails, right? Um, but where, when you're looking at, because there's a million things you can do in marketing, right? There's an endless number of things you could do, so you have to prioritize what is going to have the best impact and what's going to help the brand.
Yeah.
How do you decide how much of your effort, time, budget is going to be allocated between in-store field marketing and digital efforts or technology efforts?
So the honest answer is that we're still figuring out that balance 100%. I began 3 years ago or 2 years ago, going into my third year, without being honest, much direction and kind of building the plane, as I was flying it.
Sure.
And so that first year was a lot of kind of auditing, right? Like, what are we using? What actually is working for us? Year two was optimizing the things that were working for us. And I think this year is the year of going back and saying, okay, now that we know what's working, let's now examine what isn't and begin to release, right? Like we can get rid of some of these things in our tech stack. A lot of what we've been focusing on, especially this month, just in the first month of the year, has been, how do we reduce and optimize that tech stack to work best for us? Since we know all the things like the on the ground and the activations and all that stuff are working really well for us, where can we kind of cut and get more lean on the back end? Um, and part of that was building my team for the first time. I did half the activations I just spoke about. I did myself completely for the
Yeah,
first
sounds
year.
like
And
it.
Yeah. And so, last year we brought on a junior marketing manager to support me just with like helping with the email marketing piece of it and getting our weed maps and Leafly up to date, regularly, which, was happening before, but now taking it off my plate so I can focus more on like that high level strategy. And so delegation for me has kind of been, I know that's not a tech thing, but just taking the moment to delegate that has now given me the opportunity to now, this month alone, taking more time to look at our tech stack and seeing where we can cut costs. We're on all the, the major platforms. We're on Dutchy, we're on Weedmaps and Leafly. Um, I'm not going to share I don't want to overshare everything that we're
Yeah.
using, but we have our SMS and email marketing platforms that we're using and leveraging. We have our project management tools that we use. And so I think it's just like consolidating to get the best use of everything. I think in cannabis, what's really hard is that a lot of what we want to talk to each other doesn't. And so, even we tried earlier this year to work with one of the, I don't want to say the name, but one of the big companies that have really good POS solutions and all these things to introduced a email marketing tool. We found that, we tried it out for a little bit. We found that that tool didn't work for us based on, what we were seeing in the numbers and how those campaigns were converting versus the ones on our older platform. And so we had to switch back, right? Like all of that is a part of the learning curve. Sometimes you have to spend more money figuring out which one is better to figure out that where you where you were was the best that you're going to be. So I think that's all a part of it as well. I'm not sure if that answered your question, but we're kind of like in a liminal phase right now. So
Yeah.
that's kind of that's kind of where we are.
So I want to get back to something that you just mentioned. You came in to the organization, you started working on things and getting an understanding, and you kind of audited what had been happening and learning new and trying to figure out where to bolt new things on. What are some of the things that you found in that process that were maybe surprising? One of the things that is fun about like the advertising work that we do is, we've got pretty good blueprints and formulas for how to do things, but when you activate a new brand or retailer or brand or whatever in a new location, there's always interesting things that come out of the data that you did not expect to be there. Um, and we can get into anecdotes, but I'm curious as you were going through that exercise, both kind of on both positive and negative, like, oh, here's a thing that we had been doing, and when we actually look at the data, that turns out to not give us the ROI for the effort we're putting into it. And this other thing that we weren't doing very much of, we should do more of that. Do you have any examples of those?
Yeah, I think the first one I could think of is understanding our category, like our key categories as a store, right? We had always been told like and it still is true, but we had always been told we're a very flower heavy store, like that's what's gonna sell. We're putting all this effort into marketing flower. But I think what we found in the data is that people are more category curious than we think. I think there was a very big, like edibles had a very big year for us last year simply by positioning them in a way that complemented the consumption of flour, right? And so that's something that we saw from just Mason helping us with our inventory analysis. But also, I think when you tell yourself we are a flour heavy store, and now you're over ordering in that category, but not exploring how to position other categories to the same market, then you're missing out on an opportunity to get even higher margins on some of these products because companies want to push those out even more because they're not doing that well in the market. So we put ourselves in a better position to, get better deals up front on the edibles category because we had so much historical data of like what wasn't moving in our store. Um, of it not moving in our store, but also like creating a clear opportunity. I think defining the clear opportunity. Here is how we're going to market edibles in our store. Coming to the brand with that exact plan and saying, here's how we'll do it, give us the upfront, discount to be able to support this effort made a
Mhm.
huge difference. And now edibles has taken off as one of our top categories within the last year. It's not, it's not meeting flower where it is yet, but it has gone up significantly for our market. And especially just seeing the gender distribution in our store change as a result of that, right? We had again, and it's even again, with seeing what was working, what wasn't working, but also what wasn't happening. We weren't doing any activations in that way before I came into the store. And so last year we did an event called Matchas and Mary Jane where we brought in a very popular, black-owned matcha brand in DC, and had one of the brand's partners sponsor. Whenever you bought a matcha, you got a penny product from from a penny edible from one of the brands that we sell. And just seeing how many women, that because the owner of that brand was a black woman, a lot of black women came to support. We had a line wrapped around the store the entire day. So this is not a woman who we know like matcha, like edibles. We can now segment that all those first time customers and continue to show them the new edible of the week, right? What is the new thing that's coming in here? So even not, never activating in that way and then beginning to activate in that way, but then driving a category that we saw in another data point and bringing those things together, I think it's all like building that system that kind of interlocks the two pieces. That's when you get a successful campaign and a run based on the data.
Yeah, that's interesting. The product category, and I know we've worked with a lot of brands that when they first start their marketing journey, they come in with a number of assumptions about who their customer is, especially people that are doing, for online sales because you don't necessarily see who they are.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, and to be fair, the a huge amount of the sales in cannabis are sort of the power users, right, that drive a lot of sales. But I think a lot of retailers and brands just they kind of get myopic on that one particular category and they forget about other segments. One example which I use all the time is
Yeah.
we were working with a company and they came in to the marketing plan saying that their consumers were college students and gamers, right? That's really what they thought their consumer was.
Hmm.
This is an online company, but after a few months of gathering data, we found out their consumer was suburban moms who liked baking, right? Which is like they were like 100% wrong on who
Yeah.
their consumer was. And so I'm curious as to, as you've been gathering data, you usually find things like that in the
Yeah.
information.
Yeah.
Do you have any examples along those lines?
Yeah, I think that example I shared earlier about the discounts and who they're related to, I think that's one of our biggest findings is that in the same vein, we thought, because our CEO is a, 30 something year old young woman who is, likes to party and do these things, we assumed that the most people who are coming in the store because that's what we see on a day-to-day basis were of that age. That wisdom discount usage and that veterans discount usage shows that our average customer was actually between like 45 and 65. And they were in, obviously sometimes in a different discount range. I mean, not discount, sorry, a different earning category. So where we're thinking that we need to focus on low cost product because people don't have that much money to spend, we're actually we're actually working with people who have, retirement funds and they have the money put aside to do these things, or it's being subsidized because they're medical patients. So, even looking at the assumptions around average order value and how much people are willing to spend, all that impacted the way that we decided to focus more on bundles, less, more on bundles and less on discounts, right? Um, because we know that if paired together really well, people will spend $150 for a bundle if it fits their particular audience demographic or their customer archetype, as opposed to saying 50% off and it's a free for all. I think that's one of those data points that really shifted the way that we approached the discounting and impacted our retention as a result.
Yeah, let's talk about bundles because I don't see that used all that often in retail. Obviously, there's a lot of discounts or there's buy something, get something for a penny,
Hmm.
but bundles are interesting. So, but bundles require some thought and planning, right? Because you can't just pick three random things off the shelf and be like, oh, these things go together. Um, to the extent that you don't, that you want to share. Although I
Yeah,
suppose someone could go to your store and see the bundle, so it's
yeah,
not like a
right,
great
exactly.
secret.
No, yeah.
But when you think about putting the bundles together for, someone else who's considering that, maybe a retailer, like how can I do that? What's a good like kind of framework to think about putting bundles together that people will buy?
Yeah, I would say thinking about what the cart, taking a look at your average cart and
Mhm.
reverse engineering based on what your goals are to raise that cart value. So for us, if we know our average cart is sitting around, $65, then we know that like a bundle that is worth that is $200 is not going to make sense for our market, but a bundle that is 75 might, if people feel like they're getting a discount, that might only be 10 to 15%, but because they're paired together and they're seeing one sticker price, then it makes them feel better about it. Um, We've also even shifted the way that we've done bundles in the last year, and I'll give an example after this, in allowing for more choice, right? So more so curating collections and offering a discount as when you purchase from that collection, as opposed to saying you must buy these three items to receive this set pricing. The most relevant as of right now is actually our Valentine's Day bundle, which is we call it our For Lovers and Friends bundle, four with a four. And that is you get four products from a curated Valentine's Day selection. You save 20% off. We give you a really cute goodie bag with it. It's nice so it can be giftable to somebody. On Valentine's Day, we have chocolate covered strawberries, which is like, we have an activation kind of portion that is tied to bring it all together. Last year, we brought a violinist in to kind of just play in the lobby, kind of give it a romantic feel. So again, it's not just what the bundle is, it's the world of the bundle, right? We're selling that, intimacy can be a struggle for some people. And so by getting the Curio intimacy oil, that can actually help to destigmatize the way we're talking about orgasms, the way we're talking about, pleasure and how THC can support that journey. When we're selling Smash and Passions, we're talking about the fact that some people need a little bit of a boost to be able to get in the mood. When we're talking about I forgot about the golden strawberry flower from Curio. We're talking about the fact that, as gals and galentines, this is the perfect flower for us to chill and watch a movie, right? Like we're selling the world of the bundle, not the products. And that's the part I think a lot of retailers don't lean into because they're just like, this sounds good. Valentine's Day. These products are all named from the Valentine's Day collection. Let's do it. But it requires a world for people to feel like, this makes sense for me. And that's what marketing is. It's saying that this makes sense for me and therefore converting that purchase as a result.
Yeah, not just we'll pick the red package and say that that's the Valentine's Day special.
Exactly.
Um, okay, so I know we've gotten off on a little bit of tangent, but it's pretty interesting some of the marketing things that you're doing. I think it's great.
Thank you.
Um, so we're supposed to be talking about retention though, so let's go
Yes,
back to
yes,
that.
yes.
Back on the retention front, we started to talk about it, then we kind of got off topic. How do you view the timing between customer visits, right? And every retailer wants two things. They want customers to come in more often and spend more money.
Hmm.
Now, sometimes we see that more often actually decreases the AOV for some customers because they're coming in more frequently. They're not buying as much. Like for myself, I go to the dispensary infrequently, but I buy a lot of things when I'm there, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Um, now, and we got to take discounts out because our whole point here is to not talk about discounts.
Mhm.
Um, let's talk about the ways that you are seeing success in getting people to come in more frequently or more consistently. Maybe you've got someone like they're a newer customer
Yeah.
without just relying on blasting out, here's, 25% off, come in today.
Well, one thing that's been really helpful for us, and a lot of people don't want to invest in it, is social media. We have a really great social media following that, and our content is uh, it isn't necessarily super cannabis focused, but it's a reminder of our people, which I remember I said earlier, our people we realize based on the numbers have been a part of our power. So social media is always that great reminder of like, oh yeah, it's fun there. Let me go back there because we put up a really cool reel about, for our Valentine's Day promotion, we posted up a Love Island bit or a Love is Blind bit, right? Using some of our favorite bartenders who people know and love. And so that little reminder on social media, sometimes people don't realize how powerful that can be. We also, of course, have a loyalty program. And so when people see, in their app, their Marion main app, that they have loyalty points to redeem, they can come back. I know that's kind of a discount, but also like it's earned discount as opposed to like blanket discount. And so our loyalty program has definitely been super helpful in making people feel valued and like their dollars spent actually accumulate to something that can give them reward. Um, we're working this year to kind of make that even more fun and intriguing and interesting. And I think that there's so many opportunities with companies that are coming up. Like I forget the name of the one, but they do custom apps that can, it really gamifies the experience. And so I
Mhm.
think a lot of retailers probably look into that as well. Like how do you gamify your digital experience so that folks have an opportunity to interact with your brand even when they're not in the store. I think that has been super important for us. The other piece is definitely going to be I mean, this is kind of a blast thing. You said not too much on the blast things, but it's kind of a blast things. We do have a we miss you discount. So that is something that, we people accumulate again, it's not a discount we're sending out every week. It's like a we haven't seen you, it's a conditional discount, right? So we haven't seen you over a certain amount of time, and therefore we're giving you a small incentive to get into the door, but it isn't affecting our bottom line because you're not getting it once a week. So I know we said not discounts, but again, I think
Well,
there is a distinction between, blanket discounts and conditional discounting. And that conditional discounting is what I think can get people to see more retention without having to dig into their bottom line and race to the bottom.
yeah, and I think there's a middle ground here of um, having some sort of discount, but layered in with another marketing message, and
Correct.
then you don't have to have as much of a discount, right?
Correct.
Um,
Yeah. And of course, email marketing, we're using that. I would say those are honestly our big three. I think, our social has done a lot with like pushing us out into new audiences. We've had people come from, outside the state, out of state, they're driving down 95. They'll stop at our store just because it's on the way and they always want to experience it. And they've told our staff that, like, oh, yeah, I saw you guys on Instagram. I started to see you on Instagram. And just keeping that visual, that high level of visual presence and again, inserting ourselves into all the cultural moments, even whether or not, it relates to most of the people in our target audience or not, like we could I think our in-store stuff, like we said before, with the 65 to 45, 65 range, age range, we'll target it more to that, right? We use big text on our in-screen, we use big fonts on our in-screen messaging. We are, making sure that they are greeted in the store a certain way. But on social media, we can be a little bit more rowdy. We can be more controversial. We can insert ourselves into those kind of more fun cultural moments for the younger audience to get them in the door for a different reason. And I think another piece of it too is strategic partnership, right? So we are consistently working with other small brands in our area, other businesses in our community to incentivize people to come into our store if they're patronizing the other stores. We've worked with Carolina Kitchen, which is another it's a restaurant nearby our store. They've come in and supported us on our 420 activations, our Juneteenth activations. So people are now supporting their business because they tasted their food for the first time at Marion, Maine. And so when they go over to when they go over to Caroline Kitchen, they're getting recommendations to come over to Marion, Maine, right? So all of that kind of like creating an ecosystem in our physical community has been a huge part for us as well.
that's great. Okay, we're gonna go on a little side quest here again.
Yeah. Keep
Um,
I love a
let's
side quest.
Yeah. So let's talk about social media, right?
Yeah,
Most dispensaries have gotten their social media shut down for a variety of reasons. It sounds like it's a successful channel for you, at least from an organic perspective.
for sure.
Um, what would you tell someone who, let's say they have got themselves a new Instagram account and
Mhm.
want to not get it shut down? What are some basic guidelines you would give someone in terms of what kind of content you should and should not put on your on your feed?
Yeah, that is okay. So some of our biggest content pillars are going to be around consumer behavior, right? So if you are a cannabis consumer, what are things that you more like than likely always do, tend to do, or like might do if you were given the opportunity to do, right? So a lot of times it's putting ourselves into the minds of the people watching the content and saying, this is funny, this is relatable, this is actually like this angers me. That even that's an emotion that, people can potentially relate to. So there's so much that you can use before putting a nug on Instagram, which is probably going to be the thing that gets you shut down. The other piece is educational content, right? There's so much that we can share about the plant, about the plant and at different levels of knowledge about the plant. So your real connoisseurs are going to want to know everything about the terpene levels and the THC levels and all these and the side effects of certain strains. For some people, they just want to know what the difference between a strain is, right? Like what is the indica? What is a hybrid? What's a sativa? So segmenting that alone can generate a content calendar for 30 days if you took some time and intention to really nurture it. So seeing, where your customers are in terms of education level of the plant, and also just not even gauging where they are, but assuming that you have customers that are at each level and then generating specific content for each one. The other piece is, again, those cultural moments for us is a really big thing because of our store and what we're based on. So for Valentine's Day, we're gonna talk about Love Island. We're gonna talk about Love is Blind. We're gonna talk about, the reality TV shows, the Black love in movies that or scenes and recreate scenes from movies that are popular in our parking lot. So you're seeing Marion Maiden in the background to get that kind of, signal, that brand signal that this is coming from our store, but you're seeing it in the context of the cultural moment, not necessarily our store, but being reminded of our store as well. So there's so much of marketing that is not overt or overt, I think, in a
Yeah.
way. It's really a kind of a covert approach to bring people into our world that has been a success for us. Um, the other part, and this is like, sorry if your staff is not fun and cool, but ours is, and we hire and and that has been amazing for us because they're funny, like they're genuinely funny, and a lot of what I'm doing is spending real time with them to know, okay, Justin, you're naturally hilarious because you're feisty and spicy, and you just do things that like you're gonna just snap at people, and it's gonna just be hilarious. And so we're gonna create a skit where you're talking and introducing a new strain. We did one with like fried bananas from cookies, and we're gonna have you do a tutorial frying bananas because you like to cook, but your assistant didn't bring the bananas, didn't bring the oil, and all you have is this fried banana strain. So now we're literally just putting the fried bananas packaging in the pot and saying, "Yay, fried bananas!" Like, and you're just
Yeah.
yapping at him the entire time, saying like, "Why are you such an idiot?" You're like, it's like this is just like a funny, little moment. So really leaning into like the people that you have to work as actors, and not necessarily actors in the sense of like Hollywood Broadway, but like acting in this content in a way that relates directly to who they are and a kind of value that your customer, client, or audience wants to see.
Yeah, so you're actually like producing skits and sketches and things like that as part of your content, which I think that sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
Um, and then do you have a sort of formula in terms of, you mentioned educational content around strains or terpenes. Now, are you on your Instagram, for example, we'll just use that as a proxy for all of them,
Yeah.
um, going in and talking explicitly about the cannabis plant, and but and then how do you ride the? I mean, obviously, there's the you can't say like come buy stuff, right? You
Yeah. Yeah.
definitely can't do that. But how do you navigate the fine line between educational content about cannabis and not getting flagged?
So a lot of what we're doing is we're talking about effects. We're talking about what this strain would be good for. So for example, I'll just give this in terms of content ideas. We did, what strain are you bringing to the cookout, right? Because this was a Memorial Day weekend. And someone said X strain because it hits hard, it does this, and I don't have to hear my mother yelling at me because I didn't get the stuff from the store. Someone else is gonna say, I'm bringing this vape because it's really smooth. It has this kind of flavoring, which is going to go really well with this drink. And I don't have to be worried about anybody asking me for a puff. This person's going to say, I'm going to bring these pre-rolls because they're this strain. They have this potency, but they also are going to be the easiest thing to get everybody off my back when I want to go have a smoke break for myself. So it's again selling the world and the effect of the plant without saying X, this is going to be the exact expectation, terpene profile, whatever of this particular strain. But you're giving them the use case in which they would use it. You're giving them the effects that they'll get from it. And when they come into the store, because they're now curious, they are going to be able to get the information that they need from the bartenders who can give them that information firsthand. A lot of people get caught up in the giving it away all at once, right? And thinking that like Instagram is going to be your conversion profile, your conversion point. Instagram is an awareness channel. Social media is your top of the funnel awareness channel. What's important to do, and I'll leave this on you marketers to, know how to do your job and figure out is how do you actually leverage the platform and its capabilities to get people to your menu. That's something that y'all should know, And if you don't know, I don't want to say look it up, but also like, look it up. There's so many different opportunities here. Um, I'll be nice. I'll be nice. We're using ManyChat. We're using, Meta Business Suite to be able to get people to, engage with our posts and now get more information on the back end about, where they can actually shop with us because we can't say shop with us, but we can say comment the word this and get a, we'll send you this. We'll send you whatever. Um, but again, these are like coming from the traditional marketing world, these are tools that are readily available to everyone. I know it's different in cannabis, but that's been one approach that we've taken is like think of Instagram as like just awareness and the DMs is like consideration. The menu and your optimized menu and all those things are going to be what get you further down the funnel. And people see the world of your store in it. So the social content is meant to produce social proof. I know that your store is not rickety, it's not falling over, it's not dirty in there, the people look friendly. I can get all of that by looking at your content. That's what that's for. You
Yeah.
cannot expect to sell on Instagram or through Instagram. It's not for any business that wouldn't make sense, right? So it's knowing what all the stages of your funnel are, and then optimizing your customer experience and customer journey to be ready for when people come through the door. That's really what's gonna move product for you.
Yeah, so I think we can sum this up, and this is just again end up sounding like marketing 101, but deliver a good customer experience and in between visits, however long those are, stay top of mind and engaged with whatever channels that are available to you, right? So you mentioned social and Instagram, and that is something that a lot of people come out of the gate with that don't have a lot of marketing experience. They expect advertising to behave like direct response, right?
Right.
And that's not what's happening, especially not for a dispensary, because people aren't generally going to see an ad or a social media post and just like buy something,
Yeah.
right? Especially when it comes to a dispensary, because most people are somewhat intentional about when they're going to go, even if they're ordering online or delivery, it's not going to be the second that they see the thing, right? So you want to continue to have touch points all along the way. And we do a lot of display media, right, across all different channels, and it's a similar type of thing, which is you're running ads because you want to stay top of mind and you can control the messaging because you can choose what the imagery or video is that you're going to show. And sometimes I just use the analogy of like, okay, well, you know, sometimes you see an ad for pizza and you're like, you didn't want pizza, but now you
But
want
not
pizza. But
pizza.
maybe you're not buying pizza right now, but on Thursday, you're like, I'm gonna add
The first
pizza
time you get hungry, you're gonna order that
to my
Domino's. Yeah.
schedule. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Whenever that is.
Right, 100%. And I think, I think a big part of it too is this is for dispensary owners and executive teams is know what you're hiring your marketing manager to do. Because like I mentioned, I came in and I had to build, kind of build out, rebuild the department, not because the people, before me weren't competent, but I think that there is this idea that when you're hiring a person for marketing, you're hiring them to do all things marketing. Within the time that I came in, we found out that we need to hire somebody to do social content. We need to hire somebody to do SEO for us. We need to hire somebody to come in and support me on the day of my activations, right? Like those are learnings for over 2 years. And a lot of dispensaries are seeing the success of a company like Mary and Main, and they're thinking, oh, let me just hire a new marketing person that's going to do social and do it's not going to go the way you think it's going to go. It's not. And so getting really specific on like what exactly is the problem we're facing right now. If your problem is retention, you need to focus on your customer journey. If your problem is getting people in the door in the first place, you need to focus on your awareness channels. If your problem is people come, they're in the door, and they just they hate it there, then what are you doing to improve it? Whether it's your retail, a retail redesign, how are you working with brands to leverage their budgets to help make your store look better and feel better? What are the products that you have sitting on your shelves that aren't moving, and how can you now work with the brands more intentionally to get those products off of your shelves but also increase the revenue your store is making? So identifying the problem, a good marketer is going to come in and identify those problems that you have at each phase and then figure out the solutions for each one at a time. It's not going to be all at the same time. It's going to require you putting real budget and people in place to do those things well. And then, you can come back to stage one and say, okay, how do we optimize? How do we go over this again? And that's how you continue to iterate and get better and not have the problem of retention because it'll kind of start to solve itself.
Yeah. That's a lot of good advice there in that statement.
Thank you.
Um, We're running up on time here, and I realized we didn't even talk about your background as a marketer and the agency that you have.
Yeah.
Um, let's just touch on just for a few minutes, on your experience working with brands through your agency, the non-cannabis brands, and where you've seen learnings from the sort of traditional marketing world that were easy to apply, and then maybe some things that were more difficult to apply.
Yeah. Ooh, so a lot of the clients I'm working with are small, service-based or CPG businesses. And so their needs are typically going to be with clarifying their brand messaging, their positioning, and their visual identity, right? It's usually startup companies that are between zero and $100,000 in revenue, and we're helping them to kind of optimize to scale. And so what I see a lot with, these kind of CPG brands is that it's a lot of comparison, right? And it's also a lot of like, I want to look like this brand. I want to sound like this brand. I want to be like this brand. And not really recognizing that positioning is the most important thing that you can do in the early stages of your business. So where we come in is working with, CEOs and founders to generate founder-led strategies that can help them gain visibility and then gain trust in what they're building because they've established themselves as thought leaders. We're doing this right now with Hope as the CEO of Mary and Main. We also, my agency also manages her personal brand in PR. And so we're making sure that you're getting those placements in, the magazines that, make sense for you. You're getting those placements in the on the podcast that, establish you as a thought leader in that space. And all of that has come together in a way that we see works really well for cannabis because it's almost industry agnostic. As long as you are buying into a person that actually knows what they're talking about, then people are going to buy into the brand, right? So that's one of the approaches that we take at More Media Co. The other is just expert design and visual identity mapping, so that you actually look the part that you plan to play. And so, I started off my career as a graphic designer. I have, I call myself a design snob to an extent where I just like when things look and feel good. I may not be the best designer, I may not be everybody's cup of tea, but I have a very maximalist approach to design that I think, encapsulates people in, vibrancy and saturation and seeing the way that like you can again I want people to feel like they're in a world when they see something. So a lot of my approach has been, building these visual worlds for clients and making sure that all the touch points reflect that world. So in Mary and Main, when we came in, and this was something that felt easier because of that background, was the visual identity of the brand. We had just transitioned from being a medical only dispensary to now opening to recreational. And so we knew that the brand identity that we had when we were medical was more kind of clean and serene and wellness vibes. But people coming in for recreational, they want to get lit. They want to be outside. They want to, do fun and cool things. And so everything from font choices to, how are we adding small visual elements like stickers or, even like we do a little bit of like a quasi graffiti kind of feel to our branding now and speaks to a younger audience because, most recreational cannabis users, especially like in our area, that's where we're seeing more of that kind of that younger, yeah, younger demographic. So it was, adding to what we already had in our branding, which was, plastered everywhere, so we couldn't really change it, but adding dynamic and dimension to it that felt like it met the cultural moment in which that was happening in the industry. So that part was easy. It was cool to kind of come in and say, let's call our in-house bulk and packaging brand the Main Street Flower Club because we're on Marion, Maine, we're on the mainstream and Main Street kind of a thing that Hope came up with, which
Sure.
is cool. And so we're kind of like, we turned Main Street Flower Club into like our in-house brand, right? And so like that's really has a grungy, kind of cool young feel to it. We built a street sign in the store that was, serves as a really cool photo moment for people. So when they come for the first time, people are snapping pictures at this little, at this little street sign that we built. It's like a huge 6 foot street sign. We have a little mirror that we put inside of the dispensary that says main character energy, right? So people are seeing the main in Marion, Maine, but also getting a photo opportunity that, we see brands across the globe using these activational moments to kind of drive brand awareness. So that part was really easy to translate into the industry because it hadn't been done as much before. And it just felt right and it felt good and people loved it and reacted to it right away. The difficult pieces We're definitely going to be, I think, the social media. That for me was definitely a struggle for the first year. We found our footing, I think, after about 4 to 6 months. Um, knowing what we could and couldn't post, I think relying especially on like my graphic design background, wanting to, create really cool mock-ups and flyers and things like that that showed product and strain information and then they were getting flagged, that was a tough thing to kind of handle because doing a really cool graphic for a clothing brand is very different than doing a really cool graphic for a cannabis brand, right? So I had to learn how to replace nugs with people, how to replace, packaging with a picture of a sesh, right? So people actually felt like they were in the moment as opposed to just seeing a specific product, like product placement. And also even, getting tighter on product placement, being like a second thought in a video rather than the first thought, right?
Sure.
So, we're doing something that is about Christmas. We're gonna record us having family dinner, but then we're passing a vape under the table because, we don't want grandma to see that we're actually seshing during Christmas dinner, right? Like things like that. So I think that has kind of been the learning curve. But that knowledge from the non-cannabis world or the non-restrictive marketing world really kind of fueled the way that I was able to navigate in the cannabis space and ultimately thrive.
Great. You're doing a lot. I don't know when you sleep. It sounds like you have like five
I
jobs.
don't. I don't. Yeah,
Um,
yeah. But I have a great team and Hope and the team at Mary Main have been supportive of like making sure that if we need one-off support for certain things, we pull it in. And it's not easy and everyone's not gonna be like me, but it has been quite the journey.
yeah. All right. So because you're a designer, I'm going to just ask you a quick question here.
Yeah.
Um, so three-part question. What is your least favorite font, your favorite font right now, and the most currently overused font?
OMG. I'll start with most overused. Most overused has to be like Avenir. But I mean, I
Yeah.
guess it's fair, Avenir, Garrett. Last year at a certain point, it was that Stretch Pro font, and it was also like Akira, which is like that was like when everyone was using like very thick, wide, kind of
Hmm.
like bold fonts. That was more than one, but those are all on my list. My favorite font right now. Ooh, this is really hard. Hmm. Sorry, I gotta pull up Illustrator,
It's a
man.
yeah, yeah.
This
There.
one, my favorite font right now. I downloaded one this morning that was
Yeah,
called
it could be like literally right now.
Osborne. Hmm.
Osborne. We can go with that.
Osborne. Osborne. I can't. Don't quote
I
me.
know.
Don't quote me.
All right.
But it's a cool
Um,
serif. I'm experimenting with the cool serif fonts right now.
all right. Cool.
Yeah.
Um, we're gonna wrap up here, but before we go, how can people get a hold of you? Just so everyone knows, Jael does run an agency, in addition to all the things she's doing at Marion, Maine. So if you like what she's been talking about, and I will say I'm very impressed with all of the how you're attacking things from all angles with a lot of creative ideas. How can people get a hold of you?
Yes, you can follow me on Instagram at MOREMEDIACO, More Media Co. I'm actually doing a 2-day workshop in New York City, February 7th and 8th. That is going to help small business owners kind of kick off their brand. We're going to have live strategy sessions and photo and video capture over the 2-day period. So if you're interested in starting your brand for the first time or getting started with your dispensary, definitely a great place to start in terms of strategy. In terms of finding me on LinkedIn, you can find me at JL Harris. That's Jael Harris. That should be on the screen. And moremediaco.com if you guys want to get in touch with me.
Great. Thank you so much. I'll volunteer my least favorite font, which has been the same forever, which is Comic Sans. So
Comic Sans. Comic Sans. Yeah, I think that's guaranteed.
I
100%.
think it's the most hated font. So
Absolutely.
all right, well, I appreciate your time and sharing the wisdom that you have.
Thank
Um, and let's stay in touch.
Absolutely. Thanks,
All
Jay.
right.